Okay, welcome to the show and tell. Sometimes I'm talking about the plate making process when I get some new stamps in, but I thought I would show a couple plates here. I've gone over this process on a video before, but not for quite some years, and I haven't shown any of the recent plates. But this right here is a magnesium etching, okay? When you send out your artwork to an engraver, they're not really engraving, but they're etching your plates. Maybe they do some engraving as well, I'm not sure. But as far as rubber stamp production goes, it's an etching, okay? So this is an actual magnesium plate right here. That's the material. And what they do is these days you upload your artwork typically. I don't know, maybe some people still submit original artwork, hard copy artwork. And they go through a process of doing camera work and, that whole kind of old style of printing. These days it's probably mostly digital though. So what I do is I do my layout in on the computer, and then you create a file for it, and then you upload it to your engraver's website. Okay, and then what they do is they take that and you designate a specific size. This happens to be 6 by 9 inches right here, and this little line around here is what they call a gutter line, and that's something that is necessary in the vulcanizing process. That's the printing of your rubber, the pressing of your rubber, I should say. And what they do is they print onto a piece of raw magnesium your artwork, okay? And that's printed in some sort of ink. I'm not sure what type of ink it is, but it's printed on here in a very detailed manner. And wherever they print on this plate, that is going to be the thing that it what's the word I'm looking for? It resists. It resists an acid bath that this is placed in. It's hard to imagine that, some kind of ink is going to resist acid, but that's just the chemistry of it all. Okay, so this is put into an acid bath, and it's sitting there for a designated time. You designate how deep you want your image to be in here, and how much of this plate, this metal, magnesium specifically, you want removed in that bath. So it's eating away at this at a given time. I don't know if they're kind of agitating it too. There's probably some sort of agitator in the machine or in the bath that they're doing, just to keep, I don't know, the material kind of flowing and, removing off of here, not just sitting in place. And it eats away at that. And then what they do is they take this off. I would imagine they probably wash it with some sort of neutralizer to stop that acid process. And then what you have is, in this case, it's when you upload these, you designate whether you want it wrong reading or right reading. Okay, in rubber stamp production, you do it wrong reading. Okay, so anyways, the imagery is that you've submitted is all raised now. Okay, you can see it's kind of lifted off of the plate, or raised from the the floor of the magnesium like that. Okay, and this is what you get back from your engraver. Okay, now some places they do your molds if you want to. Some places don't. They're just engravers, etchers. Okay, and some places they'll do this whole process and they'll print your rubber if you want to as well. It just depends on what some places I don't know, whatever designated to do. Okay, so anyways, you have a wrong reading raised magnesium plate here, and you can see it's really amazing how much detail they can get into something like this. But like print, paper and money printing, currency, with all that super tight detail of presidents' portraits and stuff like that. I mean, it is really, really fine and minute in terms of, the tightest of details with, super fine engraving on there. So it's the same type of process like that. So, rubber stamps should be really no problem. But I don't know what, engravers are doing, the US Mint is using or something like that. But here's a couple of the impressions right here. And I don't know if you can see in here, but there's really some super tight details and really fine line work in this organ pipe cactus right here. You can see these saguaros right here and those fine lines right in here. But anyways, okay, what I'm getting at here is there has to be a pretty decent amount of detail that exists in this. And what they do from this is the person that vulcanizes your rubber, usually, or the place that makes these, what they do is they press this into something they call a matrix, which is the mold, okay? And this isn't of, this plate here. This is of my Lakeside Cove Large, but this is basically the matrix right here. And this is your official mold that they make, okay? So this is this is really super hard right here. So this is heated up, and the chemistry probably changes as they do it. I haven't really watched them do this before because I haven't done my own. I've never pressed my own rubber, but the matrix is pressed into that, okay? So this is wrong reading, they call it. And this is right reading, okay? So this is, this image right here is facing, it's positioned as it would look when you make your impression, right? But you're saying, wait a minute, if that's right reading, what does that mean? Okay, so after they do this, what they do is not immediately, they let this cool down and cure and everything like that, but what they do is they put a raw rubber sheet down on this and put it into a vulcanizer, and that's like this press that presses down your rubber into it, okay? And they press it down to a certain depth, get that rubber in there, and then from there they pull this sheet off, okay? So you go from wrong reading to right reading, in other words, not backwards. And then the rubber now is the backwards press. So you've gone from 1 generation, 2 generations, and that rubber is 3 generations away from your original artwork, okay? And then that wrong reading rubber, your things right here, you can see like these word stamps here are backwards, right? And it's because when we make our final impression with it, that's going to be right reading then. All right, so that's several generations away, and when you're talking about a lot of detailed work, that's quite a bit to go through, in this process. So it's always amazing to me, especially in this process right here of making this mold, that this whole process of going so many generations away from the original can retain pretty much, a pretty accurate representation of that original drawing, and my drawings, I utilize a lot of super tight details and tonal ranges in my designs. I try to make things as textural and tonal as I can with as much detail as I can. Sometimes, I have to kind of hold back a little bit and, stop from going like super, super detailed, because that is going to be 4 generations away from the original. And sometimes if you clutter things too much, your ink will puddle, in the rubber somewhere. If you make it too crazy, or if your dots are too small, if it's stippling or something like that, you don't want to ink up something, your stamp, and then stamp it out, and it's, so tightly condensed in there that if someone's using a, pretty juicy stamp pad, you stamp it out and it's going to be puddled in here. So all of that balance and this entire process has to be taken into consideration when making stamps. So on these matrix boards can pretty much be used, I don't know, just for a really long time. It really depends on how many impressions you're making out of it. But I'm looking at this one right here, and I don't see anything kind of visibly wrong with it. This is a really old plate that I had made. But sometimes after a while, because this has to be heated up in that vulcanizer and, it's being pressed into so many times, there's certain areas that can start to break down, or if there's a noticeable, like a crack in a plate or something like that, then of course this would have to be remade. But these matrix boards can be utilized for a huge number of impressions, and that's what makes them good. There are certain other types of processes that we've never used, but sometimes you can bypass this process right here and go straight into the mold, but it's with like a clear style of mold that you make. But the problem with those ones is the detail retention and the longevity of those types of molds just doesn't last, as like something as hard as this and the matrix board. So for me, with something like this, one matrix board is the all I'll ever need from this plate. So this plate has basically served its purpose. It's too bad that we just can't go straight into a matrix board style of mold and just bypass this part, but there's really no way around it. And these days, with the cost of raw materials like metals and specifically like this magnesium, it becomes pretty expensive to do that type of thing. But if you want to get the best kind of tools for reproduction as far as like rubber stamps go, this is the process that's a very old one and tried and true, and it's still the best one available to get that type of quality. So there's other types, there's clear, stamps and things like that, which most people are using these days. And it really does serve its purpose. They're a lot more economical, but they don't last as long, and you can't use certain types of inks on them, like a solvent ink, without it dissolving into there. And the impressions aren't quite as good. So on something with a lot of solid area like this, you'd really have to do a lot of impressions, like with a stamp positioner, to get a really clean impression of that image, which kind of slows down the process, which was, caused the necessity of stamp positioners. You can do repeated types of impressions for one image, at times. With these plates right here, one of the little details is that sometimes in the etching process, you might get, a straggler, little dot or something like that. It looks like this one didn't have a single one of them, because I can see there's no no, I changed my mind. There was probably a little tiny dot right here. So what my rubber guy does is he just takes a little tool and or they might have done it at the engravers, and they just scrape off that little nodule. Otherwise, you'll have a raised little dot there, and then that'll print out on, when you're making your rubber. But if it's recessed, it's going to be fine, as opposed to raised. And right here, you can see that little thing. It's probably taken like a little Dremel tool and just dremeling off, a little raised little dot or something like that in the plate. But those are your magnesiums. If you're a rubber stamp manufacturer, you usually just refer to it as the mags, for short, and all the manufacturers would know what you're talking about. Anyways, there's the two new nature sets right there in magnesium form right there that are giving us the good impressions. All right, thanks for watching.